Alright, so the plan is to install this Engel SB70 12 volt, 24 volt freezer fridge right back there, kind of as far back as it'll go before it gets to that ledge area, and then wire it in to the batteries that are right down here, so that we've got cold stuff. So we can keep our beer cold or food cold. Supposedly it'll make ice cubes if you have it turned up pretty high, so we'll have to see how that works. So take a look at the wire connections here and see what I need to do. Looks like it needs 16 gauge with a 10 amp fuse. Kind of looks like it has a fuse already, so I may not wire in another fuse. No. And so let's see here. All right. We've had multiple Yeti style coolers, and on some of our trips where we're gone for more than a week, it gets really tough to find ice, and no matter how many ice packs you put in there, you're always opening and closing them, and you just can't keep everything cool. So hopefully this is going to help out with that. Not sure what that strap is for though, so hold off on that. Little, oh, I see, right there. So hopefully this, it says it'll draw a maximum of 2 amps while it's running, and hopefully, depending on where we have this, it'll be like a 40% duty cycle. So it'll only draw, I mean, actually once it gets cold it's less than 2 amps. It can be down to below an amp at 12 volts. So hopefully we can see an amp or less at maybe a 40% duty cycle. I would think our panel, our solar, should be able to keep up with that well during the day, and then hopefully recover the batteries the next morning after it's been on all night. We'll try not to open it much and at night. We'll see. Worst case, we run the motors a little bit, or the motor. So, all right, just 2 little spade connectors. So, DC negative, DC positive. Oh, I'm actually not positive. Oh yeah, there it is. I think that's what that means. Plus there, minus there. Runs through this little grommet. Fuse is right there, so we don't have to worry about fusing it. It's got a 10 amp, just like the. It didn't come with any paperwork, so I had to go online and just download the manual. It's probably easier anyway that way, so I don't mind that it, unless it's underneath it or inside it. That would have been smart to look inside. Didn't do that yet. Now let's take a look inside. It's amazingly light. Oh, it's like a disaster. Everything's all knocked over and stuff, but I don't see any paperwork. Looks like it got scrambled in shipping here. Oh, it's got a little wiring connection kit. That'll help. Okay. Anyway, oh, that thing's pretty good size. The freezer is not really separate, so I don't really know. We'll see how well that works, but it's kind of just one of those little up in the corner little shelves that is a freezer. We'll see. But it comes with another, it's got one of these already on the door, and then this is the one that fell off. Two little shelves, and that must be for the freezer drain, maybe. I don't know, we'll figure that out. But it does come with paperwork and a little wiring connection kit, so that's cool. All right. Oh, and a tiny little ice tray. How cute. Little baby ice tray. Yeah, and this one is the SB70F 12 and 24 volt. They didn't have the one that runs on the SR70. Yeah, SB70FU. There's another one that runs on 12, 24, or 110. And we have 110 in the boat, like shore power. But in the years we've had the boat, I think twice now we've ever plugged into a dock. And that's not the kind of boating we do usually. And so I didn't opt for that one. Plus they didn't have it in stock, so it didn't matter anyway. But even if we do plug into a dock, it's no biggie. We can just run a battery charger, but I still believe the solar is going to keep up anyway, so it's not going to matter. We have a single 100-watt, but I've seen it put out up to 6 amps at 12 volt, and we really don't have much else. Everything else is LED lighting. I mean, we have the TV, but that runs off the inverter, and we only use that for short periods of time, you know, an hour at a time here and there or whatever. Alright, it's got a little ferrite thingy, whatever, for kind of, must be for interference, I'm not sure why, and another fuse. Okay. Alright, and it already comes with the spade connectors, and they're different sizes, large and small, so I don't have to worry about that whole mixing of the, yeah, and red is the positive, so yep. Alright, cool. Cool. I think it said strain relief. We don't see where the strain relief would come in, unless this is intended to be the strain relief screwed down. You know, that's exactly what that is. So, okay. Alright, so that is not 16 gauge wire for sure. That's what they call for, but that's more like 14. Alright, well, see if we can figure out a way to wrestle this thing back in there without dropping it or boogering it up. Probably gonna be tough. Plastic on the edges. I kind of like to see the bottom because I need to build some rails out of aluminum or something so that I can mount the rails down and then fasten the, you know, because in SV Betty Sue we do some serious blue water stuff, and I mean we'll be hitting waves that are you know, 12 to 27 meters. Realizing that I'm not good with metric math, I don't, you know, I'm talking about like about this big, so I don't want this thing flopping around, you know, crashing around, breaking stuff, landing on a dog, whatever. So, okay, let's see here. Gotta look underneath it and figure out what the rails look like. That is going to be a task. Alright, that's not super helpful. It's got these plastic standoff type rails, which are really good probably if you're just setting it down, but if you need to mount it down, that probably isn't going to be very helpful. pretty burnt. Went to my kid's graduation, sat out in the sun for like 4 hours. 5,500 feet elevation. Got pretty burnt. Not that I do well in the sun anyway, but you know. Okay, so I'm gonna go get some pliers, straighten out this little wing ding right here. And then I'm gonna crawl my nimble butt back in here and figure it out. From the factory, the door wasn't sealed very good at all. The little rubber seal was pressed way too tight at the top and had a gap down around the bottom. So what I'm doing here is adjusting. There's 3 portions of it that you can adjust, and it seemed like after I got it all dialed in, it actually sealed pretty well. But definitely want to take a look at that if you're buying one. Don't just assume that they took the time to get it adjusted right. So now I readjusted them, and it does that, and it's sealed all the way around. It just took a little bit of doing, but that's all right.
Putting in the refrigerator.
Okay, so I'm trying to make this little rail to go onto the side pieces so that when they're like this, I can put screws through here down into the floor. Okay, so I fucked it up the first time. Let's not fuck it up again. No, now it's too hard. On each side, just like that, a little bit of a bitch. But now we've got some holes, vertical holes, where we can put some screws, some nut and bolt with like fender washers on the bottom to try to support this thing, keep it from bouncing around. Installing this fridge and laying back into the back portion of this boat reminded me of how much I do not like sleeping back there. It feels very coffiny, and you know, more power to you if you can sleep in those kind of tight quarters. So we don't. We usually use the back part of the boat for storage, and we sleep up in the V berth and on the dinette. We set the dinette down and make that into a bed as well. Jen fits in there a lot better than I do, so I sent her back to mark the holes and get things ready to start drilling so that we could bolt this thing down. Since these boats are pretty lightweight, the floor isn't very strong. So what I'm doing here is building some little spacers to support the weight of the bottom of the fridge so that it doesn't bounce around and stress crack the fiberglass and keeps it a little bit more level. I'll probably come back later and spray some expanding spray foam in there or something to support it, because I know that wood will just eventually rot. Sorry about that. Gone for a little bit there. The GoPro overheated actually in the shade. Didn't know that happened, but yeah, it's 100 degrees out, I guess, in American degrees, and it's too hot for GoPro. So, all right, so the fridge is running. Been running for about 20 or 30 minutes, and it's currently drawing 2.7 amps, which is not exactly accurate. That's just what the solar's charging, but the only thing on right now is the Engel cooler. I've got all the way up on 5. There's probably at least a half amp of that is just would be going into the battery even if the cooler was off. So I think it's relatively close to the 2 amp. It just started out real slow. At first it was barely drawing 1 amp. It's already getting really cold inside, or the cooling elements anyway are getting really cold. I put some, I filled up the little tiny baby ice cube thing, and so it's getting, trying to make some ice in there. Put all the little drawers in, so now we'll see how long it takes it to freeze the ice. 2.8 amps now. So the other thing I noticed too is my solar panels about 1/3 shaded because the mast is down and it's laying directly across the, I'll show you, laying right across the top of it, so that doesn't probably help a ton, but maybe not 1/3, maybe 1/4 shaded. But not too bad. It's still getting up to 2.8 amps or whatever. I know when it's fully going, I've seen it 5 or 6, I think, when the batteries are low. Right now the battery's 13.2 volts and it's charging, or it's putting 2.8 amps out. So I would think the majority of that is going to the cooler. It's super quiet. It's on right now and you can just barely hear it. So anybody that can't sleep with that on has got some other problems or something, because there's no way that keeps you up. The water lapping up against the hull would be considerably louder than that while sleeping. So yeah, 2.9 amps. So it's slowly creeping up. The voltage on the battery's going up as well. So we're definitely making headway. We're not draining more than the solar can charge, and that's at full bore, starting from warm at 100 degrees ambient. So so far I'm pretty happy with it, and we'll see how it goes. Stay tuned everybody, because our next video is going to be a 4th of July trip to Catalina Island.